Morning, everyone, and welcome to our Heavenly Parents Holy Community National Sunday Family Community Service. We're going to put many titles to it. Welcome, everyone, and I'm your MC for today, and we have a special presentation. Can we just go to the next slide, please? Yeah, this is our order of service as usual. You know, with our opening song, we'll do a bow and pledge. We'll have a prayer, greetings to each other. We'll have HJ Global News, then a song. Then there's a special sermon by Dr. Kittel relating to PCLC, and also followed by a special message by President Hori. I've already looked at, they sent us a full video of what's happening in the Philippines, and later I can put that up. I just extracted Dr. Kittel's sermon and the special message, and Dr. Kittel at the end of his sermon already does a benediction prayer. So we won't really need to do again. So in a way, it'll be Dr. Kittle's sermon. There's the prayer already. And then a special message from President Hori, followed by very small announcements about the different events happening. Then we'll have a closing song and any other further announcements. So let's begin. Let's begin with the opening song. So let's join together and offer a bow to our heavenly parents and true parents, Chariot, Kyombe, Aro. And let's recite together our family pledge number 8. Our family, the owner of Chongyalguk, pledges having entered the era of Chongyalguk to achieve the ideal of God and human beings united in love through absolute faith, absolute love, and absolute obedience, and to perfect the realm of liberation and complete freedom in the kingdom of God on earth and in heaven by centering on true love. So please join with me as I offer the invocation prayer. Dear Heavenly Parents and our beloved true parents, we're very grateful to be able to come together as a community around the nation and even around our region. We know that people from Vanuatu have come to join us. This is a great opportunity that other nations can come and listen to our Sunday service, where we are having a very special Sunday with Dr. Kittel offering the sermon, and then a special message from President Hori. All throughout our region of AP2, everyone in their own respective Sunday service times, watching the same message, so that we can collectively begin as a community of Asia Pacific 2 on this providential task that is specific for our region, that has been authorized by our True Mother, and that being the PCLC, the Pacific Christian Leadership Conference. And this is to become a major activity in our region and a major activity that all of us can embody. And then plans and ways to carry it out will be coming very, very soon. And then we'll be able to work and feel that we are part of a community that not just in Australia, not just in Oceania, but all throughout our Asia Pacific 2. And not just that, also Asia Pacific 1, because this is spearheaded by PCLC, that is for our Asia Pacific region, that also incorporates Korea and Japan. And so this providence is becoming, or will become, a cornerstone of the development and growth in our community and region. So let us really have open hearts and attentive minds and come up with ideas and plans as we listen to Dr. Kittel and President Hori on this very important providential responsibility that our region has been given by our True Mother, and that we can work together as a team, and that every idea is well received, and that we can fulfill this clear mandate of heaven in preparation for the unification of North and South Korea, in preparation for the ideal nation to be established, in which Chongyalguk is firmly realized and the constitution of heaven is established, and our True Mother can be declared as the sovereign and queen. And this will be a time where the world can truly separate itself from satanic dominion and begin the era of peace and harmony that can exist on earth for eternity. So thank you for being with us, and we ask that our hearts are eager and ready, and that we can invest ourselves to the best of our abilities. So thank you for your presence, and we offer you this in our collective names as a community, and in our names, John and Shizuadami, as the Blessed Central Family. Arju. So we'll just go on to our HJ Global News. So let's present that. There's no news. I didn't download the HA Global News. I was hoping someone else was. But there we go.
Hello dear members, and welcome to another edition of HG Global News. As part of the events marking the 9th anniversary of True Father's Holy Ascension, True Mother presided over the grand festival of Chombo families sharing Hyojong testimonies, held on August 29 at the Hyojong Cultural Center, where 24 families shared very touching experiences, which gave members much hope. In this edition of HG Global News, we will report in detail on this festival and other events related to the commemoration of True Father's Holy Ascension. We will conclude with news and activities conducted by members around the world. The Grand Festival of Chombo families sharing Hyojong testimonies of Heavenly Parents' Holy Community was celebrated by blessed families from all over the world on August 28 and 29. This festival, which shared success stories of activities and work to realize 43 core families, was blessed with lively performances of Hyojong culture, and 25 families were selected from among 45 candidates from each region, and 24 of these families shared their testimony of Hyojong filial love. The Chombo families made it clear in their presentations how important the life of true love and a life lived for the sake of others is the essence of their activities. On the second day, 6 of the families who spoke the previous day also shared testimonies of Hyojong filial love. It was a festival of stars as families shared their filial love. It was a worthy time to recall the stories of Cheonilguk apostles. Mrs. John Wonju McDavid read the message that True Mother gave at the last Chonbo Festival.
하늘 부모님의 소원과 참 부모님의 소원은 세계 인류가 부모님을 모신 인류 한 가족입니다. 그날을 맞는 데 있어서 오늘 천보에 등재된 가정들은 천일국 백성으로서 책임이 있습니다.
True Mother, filled with pride, listened attentively to the testimonies of each family, remembered them, and blessed the success of all families in the world.
오늘 여러분들의 그동안의 수고와 노력의 결실로서 첨보 가정으로서의 책임을 하는 데 있어서 자랑스러운 천일국의 1세 가정으로서 출발하게 된 여러분들을 자랑스럽게 생각합니다. 여러분의 정성과 수고가 이제 마지막에 한 발짝 올라가는 고지 탈환이 목전에 있다는 것을 알아주기 바랍니다. 하늘 부모님은 사랑이십니다. 하늘 부모님의 사랑이 함께하는 한 이 민족은 바로 서야 하며 신통일 한국이 되어야 할 것입니다. 그렇게 만들어가는 여러분 모두 승리한 천보 가정, 축복 가정이 되기를 다시 한번 축원합니다.
The impressions left by the audience through the testimonies conveyed their hearts and expressed their determination. At the precious testimony of each of the families, tears came to my eyes and my heart was flooded with respect. The testimony of the 24 families was the fruit of filial love, as well as shedding blood, sweat and tears for God. It made me feel that achieving 43 families is the way of Chombo Chonshim training that perfects the 3 great blessings. It was a great occasion for Chombo families to renew their commitment to realize 43 core families. Blessed families from around the world who participated online felt a commitment to do everything in their power to become Chombo families, precious treasures of God.
Yes, thank you. We just wanted to stop that just at Mother's main part because Dr. Kittel's presentation is quite long. So I think we go on to our next song, isn't it? Or is there a song before this or not? No? Okay. We'll go on to Dr. Kittel's and President Hori's presentation. So I'll share the screen for that. Right. So you should be able to see on the screen picture of mother and father, and please pay attention. I recommend have a pen and paper handy like I do. Take down some notes, and we'll begin.
Good morning, brothers and sisters of Asia Pacific too. Of course, good morning to our Heavenly Parent and true parents, and thank you, President Masayoshi Hori, for this invitation to share this message to this region. This is the 9th year, 7th month, 29th day, according to the heavenly calendar. It is September 5, 2021. I've been asked to talk about the importance of the Pacific Christian Leadership Conference because this is being launched. Mother is supporting that, and we need to work together. We need your support to make this successful. Let's begin. But let's begin by looking at this from a historical perspective. Father talks about a 7-year course from 1945 to 1952. This is what he said. If Christianity had received me, I want to repeat that. If Christianity had received me in 1945, I would have united the world in 7 years. Through the blessing, I would have opened the gates of both earth and heaven and realized the kingdom of heaven. But as I sought to restore the nation, Christianity, together with the rest of the world, opposed me. So this opposition, Father talks about the role of Christianity, what they should have done and what they didn't do. And we need to restore that. From 1945 to 1952, 2 unprincipled ideas took root and emerged in all of their ugly manifestation. Of course, they were there before, but bringing these ideologies on a world level created 2 big problems. The first is the problem of communism. And the second is the problem of free sex. Both emerged and manifest themselves during this 7-year period. Let's first look at communism. At the end of the Second World War, the Cold War began. So in 1945, then it became an ideological confrontation between the Allied powers centering on democracy and the Central powers centering on communism. The outcome, of course, it depends. And I believe it has been postponed to the age in which we are living in now. And so far, well, more than 150, some people say by now, it's been 200 million people have been killed. This ideology divided our homeland in Korea. And we know that the United Nations had a special resolution on June 25th in 1950 to protect the Korean people. This was not a peacekeeping operation, which the UN does in many countries of the world today. This was a military intervention. And during the Korean War, approximately 3 million people died, the majority of whom were civilians, 70%, making it perhaps the deadliest conflict of the Cold War. And communism expanded to, well, nearly 1/3 of the population, those who were either communist or sympathizers. And when we look at the atrocities, as was mentioned, this book, The Black Book of Communism, says 100 million people were killed, 65 million in China alone. And then in Le Figaro, a French magazine, reputable, said the number is 150. And this magazine was published in 1978. So if we look at communism, what is the fallacy of communism that was not addressed then and is not addressed now and has manifested itself again in different forms? Well, let's look and be very clear. Communism advocates the abolition of the family. In Karl Marx's Communist Manifesto, quote, the abolition of the family, exclamation point. Even the most radical flare up at this infamous proposal of communists. So Karl Marx is saying, even the most ardent, the most radical communists are saying, whoa, we have to abolish the family? Really? Really? Yes. Karl Marx also advocated the abolition of religion. Religion is the heart of a heartless world, the soul of a soulless condition. It is the opium of the people. Karl Marx said we have to abolish capitalism. In this sense, the theory of communism may be summed up in a single sentence: abolition of private property. He went even further. The communists openly declare that their ends cannot be attained only by the forcible overthrow of all existing social conditions. Wow, they want to do a lot. So let's look. What are the common elements? What are the common denominators? And this is important because we'll see these things kind of emerging and playing out today. What's the common denominator? What is the problem with the family? What is the problem with religion? What is the problem with private property, capitalism? And what is the problem with all social conditions? It's one thing: hierarchy. So communism wants to destroy hierarchy. Well, the question obviously is, why destroy hierarchy? The false assumption of communism is this: hierarchy is evil because it is inherently unequal. So communism wants to define good and evil, and this is how they do it. Good and evil is based on equality. That's their assumption. Well, even in their ultimate ideal, the utopia, they talk about a classless society where there's no class at all. A classless society, think about it. That's like a family without parents. No class, no distinction between parents and children. That's like a school without teachers, no distinction between the teacher and the student. They have to be equal. Means the teacher cannot know more than the student. A city without a mayor, a nation without a president or prime minister. Impossible. So here we see the fallacy of communism in its full manifestation. The true cause of exploitation, as the Kausa Manual points out, is not hierarchy. That is not the problem. The problem is selfishness. Yes, hierarchy can be misused. That is true. But the hierarchy is not the problem. Leadership has a concentration of wealth and power. That's normal. Parents have more wealth and power than their children. The government has more wealth and power than the people. So leadership inherently has a concentration of power that is necessary. So therefore, we must be very careful. It is very important that leaders be public-minded and unselfish. So this is the critical point. Where is the model of good leadership? Father said it's in the family. It's the unselfish parent that wants to sacrifice unhesitantly, again and again. And when the parent cannot sacrifice, tears flow from their eyes. Have you heard this before? The individual lives for the sake of the family for the community for the nation for the world, and the world for God. In essence, hierarchy is good. The problem is not hierarchy. So Father has identified a critical component of communism. In fact, Father has founded more activities for the peaceful opposition of communism than anyone in human history. He also met Gorbachev and Kim Il-sung, although he was imprisoned in a North Korean labor camp for nearly 3 years. Father's role in the downfall of communism: he has more experience, he has a global outreach, he has the deepest insights, he has invested the most, both in terms of monetary and manpower, the longest commitment, going for 50 years or more, half a century, and the most sincere heart. He wants to help the communists. He doesn't harbor resentment. In the 1970s, the Day of Hope tours were conducted by Father when he came to America. Father spoke prophetic words that have great significance now amidst world affairs. In Father's speech on October 20th, 1973, in the Washington Monument, this was in Independence Hall. I was there, part of his 21 city speaking tour. Thank you, Greg Stone, for this quote. I can see a great change, a new surge of revolution coming to America, not by fire, not by bullets, but by God's truth, kindling a revolution of men's heart. I have come here to ignite this spiritual revolution. I do not come to demonstrate in front of the White House or in Lafayette Square. Lafayette Square is the park just in front of the White House. Sometimes they won't let you protest in front of the White House, but you can protest in the park in front of that. The answer does not lie here, but in the hearts of men, in the quiet revolution from selfishness to unselfishness. Let's keep this in mind as we move forward. We look at the free sex revolution. Well, let's call it what it is. It's not free sex, it's selfish sex. And when we examine that, we can see that the atrocities, the toll of human life, actually is equivalent to communism. One disease alone, UN AIDS said, there have been up to 110 million people have been infected by HIV/AIDS. 47.8 million have died. And what about the other diseases? This is just one. Where did this sexual revolution begin? Well, it started in its manifestation and justification in America. Alfred Kinsey, he published 2 books. Look at the dates of those books. This was a 7-year period. 1948, for the first book, Sexual Behavior in the Human Male, and his subsequent book in 1953, Sexual Behavior in the Human Female. The introduction, the first page, the first paragraph of his first book, this is what it says. For some time now, there has been an increasing awareness among many people of the desirability of obtaining data about sex, which would represent an accumulation of scientific fact, completely divorced from the questions of moral value and social customs. Whoa. So they want to study sexuality and just the act of sex itself, delinking it from the moral values, the social customs. Really? And that's what this study does. Completely divorced from the questions of moral value and social customs. Well, with that parameter, with that foundation, with that condition of his study, his social study, which he proclaimed in the very beginning, the first page, this was the research that was done and published in America. The infamous Table 34. These are examples, you can see in the bottom, examples of multiple sexual orgasms in pre-adolescent males. Wow, look at this. 3 months old? I can't see. 3 months old? 3 times. 11-month-old, 11-month-old, 2 years old. The oldest is 14 years old. Wow. So they studied these infants and preteens and some early teens about sexual orgasm. Oh, really? This published book. Sadomasochistic pederast. The question, how do you identify an orgasm in young children? Kinsey answered this on page 161, the sexual behavior in the human male, writing that it involves still more violent convulsions of the body, heavy breathing, groaning, sobbing, or more violent cries, sometimes with an abundance of tears, especially among younger children. Some males experience excruciating pain and may scream. The males in the present group will fight away from the pedophile partner and may make violent attempts to avoid climax. Divorced from the questions of moral value. That was what this study looked at. No consideration for the effect of sexuality on the 800 children that were researched. They're adults, we could do that, but no, they've closed the Kinsey Institute files. Let's follow the science. No consideration for the effect of the sexual activity on marriage stability. No consideration for the effect of sexuality on the family integrity and larger social issues. No consideration. Can the dominant human activity define a social norm? Can we define goodness simply by a majority? That's what they're asking. And the answer is no. An example is slavery. Every culture, every history had slavery, but still it was wrong. The majority does not define goodness, whether it's a majority of the government or a majority of the world population. But how was Kinsey received? In America, Christian America. Leading magazines, Time, Life, Look, McCall's. Had a best-selling book. A song was written. Tony Award-winning Broadway musical, and Rockefeller Foundation supported it. Here he is on the front of Time magazine. A few years later, the first Playboy magazine, again, during the 7-year period in 1953. But what is the philosophy of Playboy? Well, it takes from the same. If we recognize sex as not necessarily limited to procreation, whoa, what sex doesn't have to be limited to procreation, then we should also acknowledge openly that it is not necessarily limited to love either. Wow. So I don't need to worry about the children, and I don't need to worry about my partner. Selfish sex negates love, negates life, negates the family. It's just sex for personal pleasure. Well, that philosophy is dangerous. If it's in the monetary world, the business world, money for personal pleasure, it's a problem. If it's in the political world, power for personal pleasure, it's a problem. The problem is selfishness. Father says this over and over again. The principle of absolute sex, the point at which a husband and wife marry and love each other with true love, is the heavenly palace, which is the origin of love, life, and lineage of God and humankind. It is the starting point of the ideal of the kingdom of heaven on earth and in the spiritual world. This teaching was the antidote to the free sex movement. Father's teaching about communism is the antidote to the communist advancement. So then what is the solution? The answer is simply God. Mother is saying the same thing. We need to seek God, not human solutions. So we go back to this concept of the separation of church and state and any society. It's a good concept, but it's been wrongly misunderstood. They have understood separation of church and state as there should be a firewall between the two, and they cannot infiltrate one or the other. That is not healthy and not good. Separation doesn't mean no interaction. Separation means different responsibilities. They've not been clearly defined. Father does that. Mother does that. Well, what is the responsibility of the government? Man-made laws. The government is supposed to make laws, and those laws are supposed to create equality, fairness, and justice in society. They create tax laws and traffic laws, and they make laws for, businesses to live by. So governments are a lawmaking ability, and this is their responsibility. But that's not the role and responsibility of religion. Karl Marx took this role and responsibility of government and projected it on religion, and saying religion is not doing what it should be doing, making everybody fair and equal. That's not the role of religion. That's the role of government. But what is the role of religion? It's more deeper, it's more fundamental than just equality, fairness, and justice. Then, what is the role of religion? Well, religion has the responsibility not to create, because that comes from God, but to promote, protect, and advocate moral laws, to define goodness itself. Goodness is not man-made. Because if goodness was man-made, then it would be centered on that particular state or that particular ideology. For example, totalitarianism or communism, they define goodness as the transition from animals, apes, to human beings through labor, language, and tool-making ability, centered on socialism. So if you are not working for the socialist state, you are not even human. Therefore, they can kill hundreds of millions of people because it's a man-made law. But religion is supposed to develop and protect the idea of goodness. This was at the root of America. I'm in America, I'm going to go back a little bit, but I'll bring it around to our Asia Pacific region. George Washington, in his farewell address, said this: let us, this is his farewell address, his departing, his kind of legacy. Let us, with caution, indulge in the supposition or in the assumption that morality can be maintained without religion. We can't do it. Reason and experience both forbid us to expect that national morality can prevail in exclusion of religious principles. So he was saying we need religion in order to be moral. The second president of the United States, John Adams, our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other. Abraham Lincoln called America almost chosen people. A bit of humility and humor there. Almost chosen. But he did say, with the last best hope on earth. Senator Albert Beveridge, in the early 1900s, in the debate to annex Philippines, declared that God had marked the American people as his chosen nation to finally lead in the redemption of the world. This was the heart and spirit of America. Madeleine Albright, UN Secretary of State, called America an indispensable nation. Richard Nixon in 1960, his campaign affirmed, America came into the world 180 years ago, not just to have freedom for ourselves, but to carry it to the whole world. George W. Bush proclaimed in April 2004 as the greatest power on the face of the earth. We have an obligation to help spread freedom. That is what we have been called to do as far as I am concerned. So in his heart, yes, he has the responsibility of government, but he's also realized there is some divine purpose or power from America. Father talked about this too in 1971, called American Chosun. God chose the United States of America as the second Israel and raised up the American people through Christianity. God wanted to raise America through Christianity. Not just through military power, not through economic power, not through intellectual power, through Christianity. And entrust America with the mission to bring harmony and unity among all Christians. And so Father started a series of tours. Here is the New Future of Christianity in 1974, a 32-city tour. And if we look at these, it's just amazing. Father went out America, he was proclaimed. He was given letters of recognition. He was given keys to the city. He was welcomed initially in America. It's an amazing foundation that Father had built because America was ready for this. And that was its purpose and goal. It's amazing. Newspaper articles. So where else? But then what happened is that, well, there was the Fraser Committee and then Father's tax law. The American government went after Father. That may be unavoidable. But what should have happened is the Christian voice should have come to protect Father, should have spoken out. The silence on the side of Christians was really a major problem. So where on earth is there a healthy harmony between Christianity and government? Where else? Well, many Pacific Island nations are culturally and constitutionally Christian. So if America could not fulfill her responsibility, where will God's providence shift? It needs this foundation. And if we look at this region, Heavenly Asia Pacific 2, there are 20 nations. There are 463 million in population. 142 are dominantly Christian. It's amazing. And in fact, when we look at the populations, predominantly Christians, 15 out of 21 nations have Christian population of 65% or more. Thank you, Julius, for this slide. I want to show you this because it is phenomenal. If we look at the constitution of the countries of the Oceania region, Samoa is founded on God. That's their motto. And in the preamble, it says it's an independent state based on Christian principles and the Samoan cultural and tradition. They want to keep their tradition, but they've inherited Christianity. And in the Republic of Vanuatu, their motto, in God we stand. And in their preamble, we hereby proclaim the establishment of the united and free Republic of Vanuatu, founded on tradition, Melanesian values, faith in God, and Christian principles. The state of Papua New Guinea. We, the people of Papua New Guinea, pledge ourselves to guard and pass on to those who come after us our noble traditions and Christian principles. Wow. And in the Solomon Islands, their motto, to lead is to serve. That's a principle. That's the fundamental principle of what Father says, live for the sake of others, and Mother calls kyojang or filial piety. To lead is to serve. Not to gain wealth and power and prestige. To lead is to serve. And we, the communities and people of Solomon Islands, respectful of our tradition, faith in God, and Christian principles. Kiribati. Their motto, health, peace, and prosperity. We, the people of Kiribati, acknowledging God as the Almighty Father, in whom we put trust and with faith in the enduring value of our tradition and heritage. The Philippines, their motto, Makadios, Makatao, Makakalikasan, at Makabanza. For God, people, nature, and country. We, the sovereign Filipino people, employing the aid of Almighty God. They don't talk about Christian principles because there's a substantial Muslim minority. And so, but both the Muslims and the Christians believe in God. And we need to believe in God. Why? In order to build a just and humane society and promote the common good. The Republic of Fiji. Fear God and honor the Queen. There's a proverb in the Old Testament that says that if you fear God, if you love God, you will hate evil. It's in the New Testament as well. No time to go into it. But there are 6 different public officials who take their oath of office, the oath of allegiance, the oath of the president, the oath for ministers, judicial officers, members of parliament, and speaker and deputy speaker. And they conclude their oath, so help me God. The Republic of Tonga, their motto, Tonga and God are my inheritance. Wow. The Declaration of Freedom is Article 1. Since it appears to be the will of God that man should be free as he has made all men of one blood. Where does this come from? This comes from the Bible, Genesis 1:27. We are all created in the image of God. Well, if that's the case, then we should be free. Nobody should be a slave to anyone else. And that worked its way out and launched the Emancipation Proclamation and the debate within American early colonies of slavery and the issue of the economic slavery needed in the South for tobacco and cotton and the industrial empire in the North. We don't need slavery, and it led to a civil war. Here, it's clear again. The Republic of Marshall Islands, the preamble. We, the people of the Republic of Marshall Islands, trusting in God, the giver of our life, liberty, and identity, and inherent rights. These things come from God. They're not man-made. Palau. Their motto is the House of Whispered Decisions. The preamble. We venture into the future with the full reliance on our own efforts and the divine guidance of Almighty God. Be responsible and trust in God. Wow, that's exactly what Father's talking about. These countries have been prepared at the foundation of their existence in the deepest root of the Constitution, the most important law of the land. Cook Islands, their motto, God is truth. And they begin, there are 4 oaths of office. They swear by Almighty God at the beginning, and they conclude, so help me God. Nauru, the motto, God's will first, highest priority. And the preamble, whereas we, the people of Nauru, acknowledge God is the Almighty and everlasting Lord, and the giver of all good things. God is the giver of goodness itself. But these countries have paid a huge price. And during World War II, the Pacific Theater, geographically, the largest stage of the war was here in this area. They tested nuclear weapons and they deployed nuclear weapons. Huge price to pay. With that background, let's now look at this Pacific Christian Leadership Conference. I am aware, and I'm not sure if all of you are, but the original ideal came from Oceania, and they wanted to create an Oceania Christian Leadership Conference. And then President Masaichi Hori, working with others, Yutaka-san, I think, was involved as well, said, let's make it even larger. Let's make it a Pacific Christian Leadership Conference. This idea came from this region. It's not imposed or given by international headquarters or even True Mother. It comes from the heart of the people. This was your desire, our desire. And so President Hori wrote a proposal, sent it to the international headquarters, and asked True Mother, can we launch this program in the Asia Pacific region? Mother said yes. We have taken a different responsibility, not to be obedient when directions come, which is necessary, but to take responsibility and to see what is needed and ask if this is in alignment with God's providence, and it is. And so we are launching the PCLC, Pacific Christian Leadership Conference. The original Christian Leadership Conference, the very first one, is not in America, the American Christian Leadership Conference or the World Clergy Leadership Conference. It starts here. The Southern Christian Leadership Conference was established in 1975. The first president, here he is, Martin Luther King Jr. And this Christian Leadership Conference advocated two things: nonviolence, so they're not Marxist, they cannot use violence, and direct action. So they must be actively involved, socially involved, but cannot take violence. So they went to the streets of America. Water cannons and dogs were unleashed on the protesters, but they couldn't retaliate. This is the heart and spirit, and they advocated civil rights for all. Martin Luther paid for it with his life when he was assassinated in 1968, and Father called Martin Luther King the greatest American of the 20th century. That's the foundation. And behind that, of course, is providential history. So let's look at this Christian Leadership Conference. I'll talk about three areas: the uniqueness, the problems to be solved, and its contribution in solving these problems. First, the uniqueness. The uniqueness of the Pacific Christian Leadership Conference. It's not another faith-based organization, just to kind of gain clout, gain membership, gain prestige, and try and influence other people. That's not our mission. We're seeking not just national, but regional and global impact. We want to change the world. Mother has set that as her goal, clearly. It interacts with government organizations and NGOs. Importantly, the founders are Father and Mother Moon from Asia, not from the West. Father took the Asian movement that he formalized and tried to bring it to America so that the Asian values of family and filial piety could be brought to America. This is what is needed, what was needed. This was the solution to America's problems. And Father could see that. He said, I'm the firefighter coming from outside. I'm the doctor making a house visit. But America closed their eyes, shut their ears, persecuted and imprisoned Father. So Father was imprisoned by communists and by Christians. That's amazing. And yet he never held resentment against the communists, and he never held resentment against the Christians. In fact, we could even say that Christianity divided Father's nation. It divided this world. It even divided Father's family. All of this happened, but Father said, I must forgive. Christianity is too important, and continued to work in America for 33 years. Mother is continuing that today. This PCLC will offer exceptional insights into the Bible and history so that Christianity can become relevant, more relevant than ever. And we can solve major problems with this Christian foundation. It's not a vague concept of just faith, but it's a very practical, real problem-solving ideology that is urgently needed today. Through this PCLC, we will develop a deeper love and understanding for Jesus Christ. Next, what are the problems that need to be solved? Three main areas: lack of moral values, in other words, lack of a definition of goodness, the breakdown of the family, and a toxic global environment. And the PCLC, rooted in really the education and heritage of this entire movement, can address these problems. Let's look at the problems in terms of their manifestation. In Christian Europe, there was the Crusades against the Muslims. But in their own home ground, totalitarianism and communism emerged. The Holocaust and colonial exploitation. How does Mother solve these problems? Well, she went around the world and started her tour, reaching out to 7 nations with Senegal. She went to Hori Island, took a day off, and went to this slave island, as it's called, or this slave house. And the slaves were cramped into these quarters. Mother went there. And she listened to the story, and she saw the way they were treated and how they lived. They were in cages, in jails. And tears flowed from Mother's eyes onto this soil. And she said, I want to do a liberation ceremony. This is how Mother solved these problems. If we look at America today, well, we see slave trade. Of course, they had the emancipation, which has set a good model, needs to go more. But how were the Native Americans treated, the first people? Free sex, that issue hasn't been solved. Toxic individualism is now destroying this country. So the problems to be solved, well, Christianity is the largest religion in the world. It makes sense. Christianity has the largest responsibility in the world. This is why true father, true mother cannot give up on Christianity. And Father has said now it's shifted God's providence from America to the Asia Pacific realm. What will PCLC do? What contribution? Well, we love acronyms, so we've got 3 different acronyms to solve the problem: YSP, HTM, and UPF. I don't have time to go into them, but it's very simple. YSP talks about young people building character, and Mother emphasis on Hyojang. This deals with the first blessing. Heavenly Tribal Messiah, the restructuring, strengthening of marriage and family. That's the second blessing. And UPF creates an environment based on this so that we can then begin interacting with nation states to bring about this same, this same global perspective, this world of view of universal values, mutual prosperity, and interdependence. And we had the first launching of our APLC Advisory Council on April 17th. And we invited Mark Abernathy from America. And he was bold and fearless, which is what Christians need to do when they speak. Because they speak not on their behalf or for their own glory, they speak on behalf of God. And he talked about the rampant confusion that is going on around the world, especially sexuality and the same-sex marriages that are being advocated wholesale. And we've got to deal with these issues because it's just making the problem worse. And we've set up an advisory council. It's still being formed, but well, we have members from the clergy, both the dominant Catholic and also other Christian denominations in the Philippines, in Indonesia, in Australia, and New Zealand, the Solomon Islands, and Vanuatu, Samoa, Kiribati, Marshall Islands, Palau, Tuvalu. We're setting up an organization committee and having meetings weekly, even more, twice a week, centering on President Masaichi Hori. And you can see the committee members who are there. And we set up a working committee with different groups that are being set up. And this launching, here it's talked about, it's put on the calendar of events marking True Father's anniversary of his holy ascension in Seonghwa. So this launching, which will take place on October 5th, is part of Father's Seonghwa ceremony. That's how important True Mother sees this providence. There are 2 dates. We're going to have a conference on the 4th of October, and we will have the inaugural rally on October 5th. We are inviting True Mother. We pray and hope that she will be able to come. I know she wants to, that's unquestioned, but the question may be time and her availability. We will have live broadcasts in Sydney, Australia, and in Manila, Philippines, virtual otherwise. And our goal is to bring 5,000 Christian leaders. The rally will have 144,000, and we will have at least 300 on two-way live interaction through participants. So these are the programs that we're looking at right now. On the October 4th conference day, 3 sessions. The first one, PCLC's founding purpose and the vision for a heavenly unified world. Session 2, marriage in the garden, the role of the family in kingdom building. And session 3, the responsibility of Christian youth in building a heavenly community. Then on the 5th, we will have the rally, and we're putting together details of that now. It's being worked out, but we've got a basic plan to work with. There are goals for both days. Then we will be working with your sub-regional directors and national leaders, and I'm sure that you will want to eagerly participate in this process. The statement of purpose that we are working with right now for this Pacific Christian Leadership Conference is this. PCLC is a coalition, PCLC is a coalition of Christian leaders and organizations working together to strengthen marriages and family, restore communities of goodness, and help Christianity fulfill her destiny as a beacon of freedom, faith, and family. We share the hope of all ages to become one family under God. PCLC affirms God as our creator, the holiness of the Bible, the messiahship of Jesus and his sacrifice on the cross, while sincerely appreciating the work of Father and Mother Moon to protect, uplift, and unify the body of Christ. Going forward, we can see great hope. We talk about a heavenly unified world and a heavenly unified Korea. We've been talking about those two things. We actually can play a critical role. If we, in this Asia Pacific too, can get a coalition of Christians and working together with the government of these nations to understand, support true parents, then that will have a big impact, both in Korea. Mother keeps talking about the hard nut to crack is the Korean Christians. But if Christians in other parts of the world are understanding, appreciating, and working with true parents, then why not in Korea also? And also it can bring a revival of Christianity throughout the world, which is desperately needed these days. So the chairman of Think Tank 2022, which is a larger forum, is Ban Ki-moon, and the chairman for the Summit of Peace in the Korean Peninsula is Prime Minister Hun Sen. But we in the Asia Pacific realm, don't think well, this is going to take place in Korea or let other nations. We have a catalytical role to play in this. So in conclusion, I'm going to draw a quick conclusion here. I want to show the parallel between the 7-year course of True Father, 1945 and 1952, and True Mother now, 2020 to 2027. Father said this: through the blessing, I would have opened up the gates of both earth and heaven and realized the kingdom of heaven. That was his focus during that time. Mother said this in her memoir: the marriage blessing ceremony in the Unification Church movement is the most sacred and precious event in human history. Why? It is the variable marriage supper of the Lamb of which the Bible speaks. This Christian heritage, Mother will not let go. It's the foundation of her marriage, of her mission. Mother also said this: the very beginning of her Mother of Peace memoir, just open it up. Sao Tome and Principe, an island nation of Africa that lies directly on the equator. It not only lies on the equator, the horizontal, it also lies on the prime meridian, the vertical. So the intersection of the prime meridian and the equator, look it up, Sao Tome. And Mother went there. And it had a blessing ceremony inside the Parliament building with the President, the Vice President, and the Speaker, the President, the Prime Minister, and Speaker of the House attending with their wives. And Mother did one unique thing, it's written right here: the Holy Marriage Blessing and the youth to make a pure love pledge. She asked the young people to make a pure love pledge before they did the holy wedding ceremony. This was the first time. This is a major, important change. Thank you, True Mother, for this. Mother also said, we can receive the marriage blessing and share it with our family and tribe. Then we can work together as messiahs to transform our nation. Such is a heavenly decree. Chunbo, and Mother has even made Chunbo just 43 couples, just 43 couples. We can do that. So we had two ideologies that emerged and manifested themselves from 1945 to 1952, and they remain unsolved, basically. We have to solve them. Number one, we're now in a new time period, 2020 to 2027. Let's not make the same mistake. We have this neo-enlightenment where people are essentially defining goodness as equality. And they're saying anything that is inherently unequal is unjust or it's evil. And that can, the gender equality issue, and then men become labeled as toxic masculinity, and the family is rejected by that. And people that focus on just culture and race, and this race theory that is coming out, that my goodness depends on my race. No, it's much deeper than that. So we have to deal with that still. And the free sex movement, we have sexual anarchy today. So we've got to deal with them. Let's look. Father centered his work on Christianity and defined goodness as living for the sake of others. He had strong anti-communist work, promoted true family values and the blessing. True Mother, centering on Christianity, defining goodness as Hyojung, and is dealing with the enlightenment, bringing the pure love pledge into the blessing and advocating Changbo. When we look again at the calligraphies, which you all know, of True Father in Australia and New Zealand in 1992 during the Women's Federation for World Peace launching. In Sydney, Australia, November 30th, 1992, the unified world begins from Oceania. Let us work to make that a reality. We need to. This is a key that can unlock both our homeland of Korea and be a global providence for re-strengthening Christian values around the world. This will have a major impact, and we need to bring that. Revival must start here. In Auckland, New Zealand, a few days later on December 3rd, liberation of all humanity is by self-reliance. I conclude with this. Pacific Island nations, Father said this, it's in the Pyongyang. The small island nations of the Pacific, as well as Japan, Taiwan, the Philippines, Indonesia, Solomon Islands, Australia, New Zealand, and other countries need to work as one country, forming a union to sustain peace in the Pacific Rim civilization. This has been and will be the role of the Asia-Pacific Union, which Mother advocated in Japan and has been promoted both by Hun Sen and also Mahinda Rajapaksa from Sri Lanka. Two current prime ministers have advocated the need for the APU, the Asia-Pacific Union. So, having a unified Korea, having a unified world, we can work to support God's providence in this region. Thank you very much, and God bless you and your work. And as we reach out, I want to say that it's important that you reach the mega churches in your culture. Don't just go to the small churches. Go back again. It's a new providence. A new mindset is there, a new urgency, because people can see the problems, whether they are the American withdrawal from Afghanistan, which was a huge debacle, or the chaotic confusion of human sexuality in the West. These problems now are too big to ignore. People's mindsets are changing. So you've got to reach the mega churches in your culture, whether it's the Catholics in the Philippines, the Lutherans, the Methodists, whatever they are, or the Seventh-day Adventists. You've got to reach out again. And please do so with a new heart and a new determination. Again, thank you and God bless. Please join with me in prayer. Let us bow our heads and humble our hearts and seek our Heavenly Parent. We pray as a community of believers that the foundation and launching of the Pacific Christian Leadership Conference can be the long-awaited threshold. Those who live in these island nations know this because it's their culture. It would be so, in one sense, easy if just the Christians could understand Father's teaching, then they could understand Father's role as the parent, the one to come and sacrifice the most. And if they understand his lifestyle, all the more this will be reinforced. That Father is not doing this for himself, to promote himself, to build a big church, but to find a solution to the problems that are the heartaches of God. The heartaches of God are communism, the wanton youth, and the degradation of the family. That's what Father has said from the very beginning. Those are the three great blessings. The young people problem is the first blessing. The breakdown of the family is the second blessing. And communism is the global problem that has emerged because of that. And our true parents are trying to solve God's headache, God's problems. And that's what this Asia Pacific Christian Leadership Conference is going to do, is to bring together a group of Christian leaders who also want to solve problems and not just promote themselves or their denomination. That will happen naturally if they are really solving problems. And so, as we conclude this important Sunday service, where we announce to this region that we are going to launch the PCLC with True Mother's blessing, and we pray and hope with True Mother's personal attendance at that time, that we nevertheless will have a determination that we can go forward. And we will take responsibility, as Father said, be self-reliant, and then we can begin God's providence on a global level and not make the same mistakes that Christian Europe made or Christian America made, but learn from our mistakes. Make the Bible relevant and real and show how it can solve problems within my character, my decision-making ability, my priorities in life, how it can help to strengthen my marriage, my family, and how it can address global issues as well. We pray for the leaders, the sub-regional leaders, Reverend Dr. Julius Melikdom and Reverend Yutaka Yamada, and the national leaders as they guide and direct us in this direction. We are very busy, we know that, and that won't stop, and we must continue with the other programs that we have, the Rallies of Hope, the launching of Think Tank 2022 Forum, and the launching of the YCLC program and others. We cannot shirk our responsibility there, but at the same time, we must work together to fulfill and bring this launching on October 4th and October 5th to its full fruition. We ask you to trust us once more. Give us this responsibility. Give us this trust. We will work to make the foundation here in Asia Pacific for a heavenly unified Korea, for a heavenly unified world. That is our responsibility. In one sense, away from the limelight of these huge providential missions of Korea, Japan, and America, and yet critically important that we have this foundation and determination. Thank you again for the leadership that we have at all levels. But to be honest, more importantly, thank you for the members. Who are sacrificing daily, who have put their public mission even above their families, who live in the culture that they want to transform. The Bible said it's hard to be a prophet in your own country. And yet these national leaders and community leaders that we're raising up have this responsibility, Father. Please guide, protect, nurture, be with them, give them strength and encouragement like you gave Joshua when he took on the mission of Moses. We ask you to guide and direct us so that we can set up an effective program that can bring positive, powerful results that will be lasting, and that this can happen quickly during this 7-year period. I offer this prayer in the names of Robert and Teresa Kittel of the Blessed Central Family. Aju.
I've just paused it just then, and for that to sink in. And what comes next is President Hori's message, and then some small announcements about the coming activities. We have lots of planning being done in preparation for PCLC, and that we can share later at another time. Receive warmly our President Hori, and I'll just begin. His message is about 16, 17 minutes, something like that. So I'll just play that. Thank you.
We had the Rally of Hope in the Philippines, and many VIPs were able to participate and be connected to the vision of true parents, in particular the Heavenly Unified Korea. And the Philippines Rally of Hope that will take place in February 6, 2021, really had a foundation from all of the rallies of hope that took place before, in particular the Rally of Hope that we held last year. And already we are reaching out to close to 13,000 leaders and mobilizing them. And we are also developing a new program together with governments on how to work together. And I will explain this in more detail later. And how are we going to restore 1/3 of the population in the Philippines? The majority of the people in the Asia Pacific 2 region are of a Christian background, and that is why we are really focusing our activities on these Christian religious groups. And we already have ACLC, WCLC, KCLC, and now we are really developing PCLC, the Pacific Clergy Leadership Conference. And out of the Christian population of 65%, we are really reaching out and developing synergies with all the ACLC organizations. And centering on Reverend Damian Dunkley, we've been able to really reach out to many clergy, and our goal is to reach out to at least 40,000 clergy. And also, we will have various conferences that are planned. We will have a Christian Leadership Conference and on October 4, 2021. And we want to thank True Mother for really giving us permission to host this launch of PCLC. The rally will be October 5 with the conference taking place the day before. And this conference will take place centering on True Parents' words, and we will have a keynote addresses and inauguration ceremony that will combine all of the Asia Pacific region and all the Christian leaders in the Asia Pacific realm. And also, we are really trying to not just build a foundation for the region, but really go through a formation, growth, and completion stage where we will be able to educate and bless 12,000 Christian couples, most of them clergies, and really make sure that we can have Christian clergy become Chonbo victors. Furthermore, we are going to also combine and link all of the VIPs and all of the religious foundation in Asia Pacific with the Providence to realize the heavenly unified Korea. And also we are going to expand not just UPF and PCLC, but also YCLC in Asia Pacific to raise the next generation of leaders. And also in 2027, we will host the continental level blessing and the summit, and we will realize the restoration of 1/3 of the population in Asia Pacific. But in order to bring it forward faster, we will do our utmost best. And also, Reverend Dunkley also is supporting us, and we're working really as a team in the Asia Pacific region. And if we see what True Father said, is that the small island nations of the Pacific, as well as Japan, Taiwan, the Philippines, Indonesia, the Solomon Islands, Australia, New Zealand, and other countries need to work as one country, forming a union of the Asia Pacific. Therefore, we're going to mobilize this foundation to support the heavenly unified Korea and the heavenly unified world, centering on UPF, PCLC, and the Asia Pacific Union. We will really bring the umbrella of Heavenly Parents to holy community to combine all of this and be connected to the heavenly unified Korean, heavenly unified world. And I hope that Mother can be healthy and happy, and that she can take hope in this report from the Asia Pacific region. Mother, we love you. Thank you very much. We will always walk with you in one direction.
Good morning, dear brothers and sisters of Asia Pacific too. How are you? Thank you for participating in Sunday service. Recently, a series of events have been held as the 9th anniversary of Two Fathers Songfa. This is a 6-month devotion period from August to February next year. All devotion during this period will lay the foundation for 2022 Heavenly Unified Korea. More than anyone else, True Mother is working hard on this. We encourage you to listen to True Mother's word with great interest. Dr. Yoon of IHQ also testified at the recent announcement at the Cheonilguk Leaders Conference how seriously True Mother is putting in to unify Korea every day. On the occasion of True Father's Songfa ceremony, True Mother did not shed tears. That is because she promised to fulfill the long cherished desire of True Father to decorate True Father's Songfa with the glory of victory rather than ending it in the personal sorrow. True Mother has proclaimed uninterrupted progress. Then True Mother proclaimed Foundation Day, which the couple should have declared together. Cheonilguk started from that time. We are living in the history of construction after the founding of Heavenly Kingdom on earth, while ending the wilderness era. At the end of 7 years course from Foundation Day, True Mother blessed her 2 grandchildren and proclaimed Cheonilguk's peaceful settlement. In year 2022, the next year, will be 10th anniversary of True Father's Songfa. True Mother is determined to dedicate the victory of Heavenly Unified Korea to heaven as a result of the victory of True Father. The following year, in 2023, the World Hori Temple of the Heavenly Parents Hori Community, Cheonil Sonjeon, will be completed. Some people misunderstood that True Father's Songfa would end of era of True Parents. However, the truth is that the era of True Parents continues as the golden age of humankind. True Mother has won both battles. In battle to make True Father's victory even bigger, and in the battle to defend True Parents' centrality. The past 7 years have been a process of reorganizing the unification movement and the able sphere centered on True Mother. This is the concept of Heavenly Korea, Heavenly Japan, Heavenly Asia Pacific. And only when Cain and Abel are united, centering on the True Parents, then it will become a world where God can be welcomed and the place God's dreams will come true. This is the 2027 victory and also the concept of Heavenly Unified World. It is our responsibility to participate in this heavenly providence. And on the basis of one direction on this path, there are our repentance, our forgiveness, and resurrection, and eternal life, and the heavenly fortunes. To substantialize Cheonilguk, True Mother has vowed to heaven to make all blessed families into Chombo families. Through the process of becoming Chombo family, our blessed family can be a gift of True Mother, dedicated to Heavenly Parents and True Father. To conclude this short message, I would like to talk about 3 things. Number 1, let us become a Chombo challenger. Not all blessed families are Chombo yet. However, at least you can be a challenger. I call on all of you. Number 2, significance of PCLC. In the next 2 videos, I and Dr. Kittel will explain about PCLC. This is our contribution to build Heavenly Unified Korea. Please be interested and cooperate with us as a direct contribution to True Mother. Number 3, about Hyojong offering. Asia Pacific One made a great offering this year. To be honest, Asia Pacific One has a weaker financial base than us, and Corona made it even worse. However, President Dankri raised $90,000 donation and dedicated it to True Mother with the idea of doing his best in the most difficult times. True Mother was so moved, and she gave her 70 sacred clothes to Asia Pacific One. On the other hand, True Mother also provided support money for typhoon damage to us. And with that, as an opportunity, I planned Rally of Hope Philippines, and it was able to win. We received it earlier, so we need to return to True Mother with joy. That is a tribute to PCLC and Hyojong offerings. I understand that there are various difficulties such as Corona difficulties and Chombo donations. However, I think that now is the time of paradigm shift, because we have entered the Chonyuguk era, which is the era of responsibility for children. Asia Pacific One won True Mother's tears, not because it collected like taxes. It was because there was sincere devotion. It gathered and dedicated as the collection of sincerity of everyone. There is no true love in the fallen world. So everything is a feeling of being taken away. But the people of Chonyuguk realize that people or families with important missions often have special challenges. They also realize that they are loved and protected and keep alive. Then they want to return to their joy, to heavenly parents. That calls more heavenly fortunes. So it is a cycle of goodness. Under the new culture of Hyojong offering, we would like to call for PCLC to be held on our own and for further donations to True Mother. We set goals for donations, but more importantly, we are free from the framework of the wilderness era and built a new culture. Originally, under the Pharaoh, Israel was suffering from unhelpful suffering. Means endless suffering. But the offering to God, even in a painful wilderness life, was a gratitude for liberation and a condition for salvation. However, making a sacrifice itself comes at a cost. In Israel, all those who dislike offerings have perished, and a new generation of God-obeying has entered Canaan. The same problems is in us. The second generation, who saw the hardships of their parents, feel that the entire donation themselves are bad. No context is inherited here. The same goes for issues of faith and blessings. We must pass on the context to our descendants as well as their blood lineage. If they make sense, they will all be resurrected as the children of God. In this way, we must transform our culture from a condition of salvation and an obligatory donation to a tribute of filial piety. Then we can advance the providence, heavenly providence. That's why PCLC and Hyojong offering. Because of the difficulties, our offerings gives off a brighter glow and filial piety. Thank you for listening to the end. May you and your family have heavenly protection, guidance, and health. Thank you very much. I love you all. 감사합니다.
So that was the conclusion of Dr. Kittel and President Hori. There's like a couple of minutes of some announcements that were given. So because this was for the entire region, and they make up our part of our announcements as well. So I'll just play that now. It's just like a couple of minutes of things that are happening that we so most of them I think we're already aware of, but I'll just play it. Thank you.
Good morning, brothers and sisters. Here are the news and announcement for this week. On Saturday, September 11 at 11 a.m. is the opening session of the Asia-Pacific Leadership Conference. The APLC is an online conference that will run for 1 month, and it will be a combination of 4 live internet interactions, 11 pre-recorded sessions, and 1 of 2 local follow-up initiatives. To register, you can scan this code or open this link provided on your web browser. This coming Sunday, September 12 at 10 a.m. is the Think Tank 2022 Rally of Hope hosted by the UPF International. Witness current and former heads of states and government, first ladies, and international dignitaries as they explore ways and opportunities for peace on the Korean Peninsula. Follow us on the UPF Philippines Facebook page to be updated about the event. On October 4 to 5 is the PCLC inaugural convocation and rally. To register for the event, open this link provided on your web browser. You can also visit us on our official Facebook page to get exclusive updates. Don't forget to like and share this with your family and your friends. That is all for the news this week. Have a blessed Sunday.
So thank you, everyone. That's our Sunday's service. I think we have a song. So already we did the benediction prayer. Yep. Okay, let's go into the song.
This is my desire.
Wow, thank you. It's a beautiful song and a fitting song to conclude our sermon by Dr. Kittel and President Hori's message. As the announcement said, there's APLC happening, the Rally of Hope happening, and the PCLC. More materials will be put on the Australian announcements website, so you'll see about that, and also planning how we can work together, to realise the fulfilment of PCLC and to honour Father's words. When he called upon Japan and Taiwan and Solomon Islands and Australia and New Zealand and other countries to come together, to really have a unified community, an Asia-Pacific Union that can really spearhead through the Pacific Clergy Leadership Conference. So there's many exciting things happening and making some plans, and later I'll be putting announcements on Australia Announcements and asking for your help in what you can do towards that. So that more will come in relation to that, and it's an exciting time that we live, to be together, with our true, this golden age with our true mother. And we really are in a parallel point in history, as Dr. Kittel mentioned, from 1945 to 1952, that this 2027 vision is that parallel time where the opportunity for Christianity to accept our true parents can come about and really see the world transform. So this is something that relies on us to invest ourselves wholeheartedly. So it's a great pleasure that everyone has come and listened today. I have a recording of this, and once it's downloaded and processed, I'll put it up, as well as I'll put up the entire service that came from the Philippines. So if people want to see what the Philippines sang before and after, and some of the comments by Dr. Malikdom and some of the other leaders there in the Philippines, I'll also put that up so people can look at it again. I recommend looking again at Dr. Kittel's things. If you didn't take notes, I took a bunch of notes, and I'll be looking back again, and also looking back again at President Hori, where he outlined 3 different things. Who remembers the 3 things? Did you write them down? Anyway, it's not a test, because Daniel's got his hand up. But yes, we'll discuss more about that with others, and we'll make a plan where everyone can be involved and feel like that we're working together towards our common goal, which is to really build Chongyulguk here, and to have that internal heart that we can do it. And it is achievable. Just have to accept that we have limitations. That's why work together as a team, and then as a team, all the limitations disappear, because we can build on each other's good points. So let's have this as like a new start, because this was the kickoff for the Pacific Christian Leadership Conference Sunday service, and this is an opportunity for us to make a fresh start. And I pray that we really pray for each other so that we can strengthen ourselves. So thank you for coming to our Sunday service, and look out for the, I'll put up on the Australian announcements for this Sunday service later today. You'll see it. Okay, thank you everyone, and enjoy your day. And those that come to Hundok in the morning, I encourage even more to come and see you in the morning. Okay, bye-bye.
Thank
Enjoy
you.
your
See
day.
you.
Bye-bye.
Happy Father's Day.
Oh yes, happy Father's Day. I totally forgot.
Woo! Happy Father's
So many fathers out there, including myself. Happy Father's Day, everyone.
Aju. Yes, my brother, please.
Yes, go Dad. Yes.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.